Democracy for many Africans is a very familiar word. African countries such as Kenya, Zambia, Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal have all been regularly described as democratic countries. These countries and many others across the African continent have been praised for regularly holding peaceful elections and also for the orderly transfer of power between governments. Indeed, African countries like Zambia, Kenya, and Ghana have been described as being beacons of democracy. According to its promoters, Western-style democracy, where citizens queue to vote every few years to elect candidates of one political party or another to represent them, is the best system of government. This system, they say, guarantees freedom and leads to economic development. Now, you must be wondering what Western-style democracy has to do with Thomas Sankara, the military head of state of Burkina Faso from 1983 till 1987. Indeed, for being a military officer who took power through a coup d'etat and not through elections, Thomas Sankara will be considered by the promoters of Western-style democracy as an undemocratic or autocratic leader. The main objective of this video is to show how the supposedly undemocratic government of Thomas Sankara greatly improved the lives of the Burkinabe people, and also show how the so-called beacons of democracy in Africa have failed woefully in the last 3 decades to significantly improve the lives of their people. In other words, this video is going to show how the much celebrated democracies in Africa are in fact not true democracies. Put simply, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, as described by Abraham Lincoln. Democracy, therefore, is fundamentally a system of government that depends on the will of the people and must serve the interests of the people. And so, to determine if a country is truly democratic, the government of that country must be adequately serving the needs and interests of the people. From the early 90s onwards, there was a wave of democratization that swept across Africa. The main features of this was the reintroduction of multi-party politics, together with the direct election of presidents and members of the legislature. African countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Ghana, and many others have held general elections every 4 or 5 years that see citizens queuing to vote for candidates from one political party or another. According to the promoters of multi-party democracy, it is the best option to achieve economic development and prosperity for Africans. For the many Africans who have been dutifully queuing to vote every few years for the past 3 decades, has this promise of development and prosperity been fulfilled? The answer to this question will be clear by the end of this video, but before then, let us look at some achievements of the Thomas Sankara government. After all, remember, we have been told over and over again that it is only multi-party democracy with regular elections that guarantees development and best serves the interests of the people. But the reality and achievements of Thomas Sankara's 4-year rule as the president of Burkina Faso challenges this viewpoint. At the time Thomas Sankara took over as the president of Burkina Faso, the vast majority of citizens were living in poverty and lacking the basic needs of life. Sankara, being aware of this, got the leaders, including himself, to sacrifice most of their privileges. First, Thomas Sankara reduced the salary of all public servants, including his own.
Dans ma population de mon pays, je suis parmi les 0,035% de ceux qui ont eu la chance d'être des fonctionnaires et d'avoir un salaire régulièrement. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est normal que des gens comme moi soient régulièrement payés et que le reste de la population, des millions et des millions de personnes, soient dans la misère continue? Non, cela n'est pas normal et nous luttons contre cela. À commencer d'abord par les principaux dirigeants, le président, ses ministres et tous les autres responsables.
He then sold off the government fleet of Mercedes cars and made the Renault 5, which was the cheapest car in Burkina Faso at the time, the official service car of all ministers. Also, Sankara forbade the use of first-class airline tickets by government officials. All of this was done in order to reduce public spending on government officials and channel the money saved into investing in public healthcare and education for the Burkinabe people. Under the government of Thomas Sankara, many schools, health centers, pharmacies, and water reservoirs were built across Burkina Faso to serve the people, many of whom previously did not have access to healthcare or educational facilities. As a result of these infrastructural developments, the infant mortality rate in Burkina Faso was significantly reduced between 1982 and 1984. Between 18,000 to 50,000 children who were dying annually of measles and meningitis were saved as a result of a nationwide vaccination campaign. Sankara also introduced a national literacy program which increased the literacy rate in Burkina Faso from 13% in 1983 to 73% in 1987. Also, school attendance under Thomas Sankara increased from just 6% to 22%. These achievements of the Thomas Sankara government in just about 4 years show how the lives of the Burkinabe people were fundamentally improved. Surely, even the staunchest believers in multi-party democracy have to admit that the Thomas Sankara government, despite not coming to power through elections, in fact acted democratically because they satisfied the basic requirement of democracy by being a government for the people. In a 2001 Afrobarometer survey conducted in 12 African countries, when Africans were asked about the features of a democratic society, almost everyone, specifically 89%, said that it is important for citizens to have access to the basic necessities of life, like food, water, and shelter. The survey report goes on. In practice, people want democracy to deliver these benefits, including education, even more strongly than they insist on regular elections, majority rule, competing political parties, and freedom to criticize the government. Africans are predisposed to judge the performance of democracy primarily in terms of its record at delivering improvements in the socio-economic sphere.
Our children do not have jobs. I have 2 sons. All of them have had their master's degrees. They are still at home. So I want the new government to create more jobs for our children.
With these findings in mind, let us look at multi-party democracies across Africa and see if they meet the key demand of Africans when it comes to democracy. That is, ensuring citizens have high standards of living and access to the basic necessities of life. In another Afrobarometer survey carried out between 2019 to 2021, a basic question that was focused on was, do Africans still want democracy, and if they think they are getting it? The survey involved over 48,000 face-to-face interviews with Africans in over 34 African countries. A key finding Afrobarometer made from the survey was that when democratic demand and supply in Africa was compared, it was seen that African governments are not meeting their citizens' aspirations to live in democratic, effective, and accountable societies. Also, when the respondents were asked how satisfied they are with the way democracy works, only 43% said they are satisfied, a substantial drop from 50% a decade earlier. Despite being blessed with abundant riches in terms of natural resources, African multi-party democracies have largely failed to improve the living standards of their people. In a report released by the Kenya National Treasury with statistics from 2021, it was revealed that some 19.1 Kenyans are living below the poverty line. That is about 38.6% of the total national population. Also, 15.1 million Kenyans were classified as being food poor. That translates to about 1 in every 3 Kenyans. Now here are some statistics from an Oxfam report on extreme inequality in Kenya. Nearly 1 million children of school-going age are still out of school, the 9th highest number of any country in the world. It is estimated that nearly 2.6 million Kenyans fall into poverty or remain poor due to ill health every year. And a quarter of the Kenyan population regularly lack access to health care. In Nigeria, the National Bureau of Statistics announced in June 2023 that over 133 million Nigerians are living in poverty. The figure represents 63% of the Nigerian population. And according to Oxfam, 57 million Nigerians lack safe water, with over 130 million Nigerians lacking adequate sanitation. And the country has more than 10 million children out of school. Over in Ghana, the multi-dimensional child poverty report showed that nearly 3 out of every 4 children in Ghana are deprived and live in poverty. A report by the Ghana Statistical Service found that 45.6% of Ghana's population are multidimensionally poor. Another report by the Ghana Statistical Service discovered that an alarming 5.4 million people out of the 12.3 million Ghanaian workforce are multidimensionally poor. The same report also indicated that 4.8 million out of the 5.4 million persons are employed, but are shockingly not able to access good healthcare, education, or may be working under poor conditions. In Zambia, despite the abundant copper wealth, the country has one of the highest malnutrition rates in all of Africa, with 31% of Zambians being undernourished. Nearly 1 in 3 Zambians lack access to clean, safe drinking water, and more than half of the country still lives below the national poverty line. The 4 African countries that have just been looked at, specifically Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and Zambia, are all multi-party democracies that have been praised over the last 20 to 30 years for regular elections and transitions of government. But as the facts and statistics I have just presented show, they have woefully failed the basic test that Africans require for democracy to pass. That is, to ensure citizens have access to the basic necessities of life. All of these 4 countries, just like all of Africa's other multi-party democracies, have been blessed with abundant natural resources, which can easily be leveraged to ensure all citizens have access to the basic necessities of life. And yet, after 30 years, this has failed to be the case. For decades now, Africans have dutifully queued to elect leaders who promise to fight poverty and improve the lives of the people, but it all turns out to be fake promises just to ensure those leaders win political power. As we saw with the government of Thomas Sankara, sacrifices were made by government officials in order to improve the lives of the people. But in the so-called democracies of today, not only have elected leaders refused to make significant sacrifices to benefit the people, they have selfishly awarded themselves ridiculously high salaries and all kinds of privileges. All of this has been done without the input or approval of the poor people who elected them into office. In Africa's democracy, elected leaders swim in great luxury, whilst the millions of poor people and children drown in abject poverty. How can this be true democracy? Thomas Sankara proved to be a servant of the people by placing their interests first and working to improve their lives. But in African democracies, elected leaders, instead of serving the people, have rather made themselves into masters of the people.
Le sacrifice. Et ce sacrifice commence d'abord par les dirigeants eux-mêmes. Dans notre pays, il est interdit aux ministres de voyager par avion dans les classes premières. Ils doivent voyager en classe économique. Nous avons supprimé les voitures de luxe et nous avons pris de toutes petites voitures pour nos ministres, lesquelles voitures sont économiques et permettent au peuple de récupérer les sommes ainsi économisées pour faire des dispensaires pour aider d'autres populations.
During political campaigns, politicians constantly resort to deceiving the people just so that they can win power and pursue their selfish interests. How can anyone consider this to be true democracy? On the issue of the constant deception of the people by politicians, here is an important contrast with Thomas Sankara. In an interview about the life and works of Thomas Sankara, his foreign policy advisor, Honorable Fidel Kientega, highlights a very important point. Talking about the issue of foreign aid, especially from the IMF and World Bank, which Thomas Sankara was totally opposed to, Honorable Kientega states that Sankara told them, that is the people of Burkina Faso, about the mechanisms of getting loans from the Bretton Woods institutions and France. He said that they could relax at home and ask him to borrow money from the neo-colonialists, but that they would have to bear in mind that they and their children would have to pay back the loans with interest. Consequently, his government would find it difficult to provide universal education and healthcare because he would have to spend a greater chunk of the meager tax revenues in servicing the debt. Sankara led the people into taking their destiny into their own hands by being open and honest with them. All across Africa's so-called democracies, from Ghana through Nigeria to Kenya, one elected government after the other have constantly turned to the IMF and World Bank and obediently implemented their policies. Despite all the evidence of the devastation that these policies have caused to Africans, elected African leaders continue to slavishly follow the same road. Elected governments have constantly obeyed IMF orders to cut public spending on healthcare and education, which has pushed millions of Africans into poverty. They happily cut funding to give poor people a lifeline, whilst at the same time maintaining their unreasonably high salaries and privileges. Compare this to Thomas Sankara reducing his own salary and ordering his ministers to do the same, together with other sacrifices just to benefit the people. Now, which of these governments can be said to be truly democratic? Clearly, despite being elected by the people to serve them, these elected governments have no real interest in serving or protecting the interests of the people, and this exposes multi-party democracy in Africa as being a sham for the African people. I, at this point, have to issue an important disclaimer. My use of the Thomas Sankara government to expose the so-called democracies in Africa is in no way an endorsement of military regimes. Far from it. Thomas Sankara remains a rare exception when it comes to military leaders acting fully in the interest of the people. Indeed, Thomas Sankara was murdered by another military officer who then went on to reverse his transformational policies. Other great African leaders such as Ghana's Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah were overthrown by unprincipled and corrupt military officers. As such, I am a strong opponent of military governments, as most of them have been oppressive and a negative for Africa. After noting all this, the truly democratic nature of Sankara's government cannot be denied, as it shows that real transformation can happen without multiple political parties and elections. Just as the failure of multi-party democracies across Africa also proves that simply holding elections every few years between two or more political parties does not guarantee socio-economic development for the people. A true democracy must have leaders fully serving the interests and needs of the people. It also requires leaders who are honest and truthful to the people. Finally, a true democracy must have leaders who are ready and willing to make sacrifices for the benefit of the people. The Thomas Sankara government exhibited all of these features, whilst the supposedly democratic African governments failed to meet even one of the standards listed. The great African leaders who led us to independence, like Julius Nyerere, Ahmed Sékou Touré, and Kwame Nkrumah, adapted the one-party system as the way of governing their people. This was widely condemned by the West, who insisted that the one-party system was undemocratic and that only the multi-party system was truly democratic. As this video and the reality in Africa shows, they are wrong about the multi-party system being truly democratic. Here is Sékou Touré's view on the multi-party system. In countries where the parliamentary system is almighty, the elect would totally substitute themselves for the people for the whole span of their political office. The people recover their sovereignty on election day, whereafter they return for 3, 4, 5 years to the condition of slaves to their elect, victims of their maneuvers, of their lack of conscience, and even of their treachery. Explaining his preference for the one-party system, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah states that a people's parliamentary democracy with a one-party system is better able to express and satisfy the common aspirations of a nation as a whole than a multi-party parliamentary system, which is in fact only a ruse for perpetuating and covers up the inherent struggle between the haves and the have-nots. But I must add that Kwame Nkrumah was clear about the fact that the one-party system is an effective and safe system only when the government governs through the people and not through class interests. In other words, the one-party system is only good when the basis of the government is the will of the people. Nkrumah further warns that the one-party system of government in a neo-colonialist client state subject to external pressures and control can quickly develop into the most dangerous form of tyranny, despotism and oppression. As the incredible success story of China has proven, the one-party system of government is a very effective system that can bring about transformational socio-economic development. By lifting 800 million people out of poverty, the Chinese government has proven to be a government acting in the interest of the people and for the people. The promoters of multi-party democracy will have you believe that, due to the absence of general elections and opposition political parties in China, the government is undemocratic. But various polls conducted show that a vast majority of the Chinese people believe that they live in a democracy and in fact consider the government to be working for the benefit of the people. Now, this may shock you. In a 2020 poll that was conducted, 73% of Chinese consider China to be democratic, compared to only 49% of Americans who consider the USA to be democratic. With the results of these polls in mind and the truly incredible achievements of lifting 800 million Chinese out of poverty, the one-party system of government in China has proven to be a true and effective democracy that shows that there is not only one form of democracy. Here is a quote by Xi Jinping, the president of China, regarding what true democracy is. Whether a country is a democracy or not depends on whether its people are really the masters of the country. If the people are awakened only for voting but enter a dormant period soon after, if they are given a song and dance during campaigning but have no say after the election, or if they are favored during canvassing but are left in the cold after the election, such a democracy is not a true democracy. The main objective for which I put together this video is to first of all highlight the remarkable achievements of Thomas Sankara's government in just 4 years, and expose how a government that will ordinarily be considered to be undemocratic actually turned out to be very democratic compared to the much praised multi-party democracies in Africa. The second objective is to alert my fellow Africans to the fact that democracy can take many forms, and that simply having political parties and regularly holding elections does not guarantee real democracy. What is most important, therefore, is whether or not political leaders represent the people and act in their interests. And unfortunately, as we have seen and continue to see across Africa, elected leaders certainly do not represent the interests of their people, but rather their own personal interests, unlike the great Thomas Sankara. I hear many Africans say that democracy is not good for Africa and we need something else. No, they are wrong. The truth is that we have not had a true democracy. What we need is a true government of the people, by the people, and most importantly for the people. To end, I leave you with Thomas Sankara's personal view on what democracy is or should be in his own words. Democracy is the people with all their strength and potential. Ballot boxes and an electoral apparatus in and of themselves don't signify the existence of democracy. Those who organize elections every so often and are concerned about the people only when an election is coming up don't have a genuinely democratic system. But wherever people can say what they think every day, that's where there's genuine democracy, because you have to earn the people's trust every day. Democracy cannot be conceived of without total power resting in the hands of the people, economic, military, political, social, and cultural power. I would really love to hear your thoughts on what democracy means to you personally and how you think it should or should not be like, so please do leave a comment below. Kindly do subscribe to our channel and share the video with others. Thank you so much for watching.